Infinity Weekend is now over, and I hope you got a chance to go out and play because I did. I took my older two boys, my 12-year-old, my 10-year-old, and the three of us had an absolute blast. Though I probably had more fun than my boys, and I will tell you why in just a little bit, of course. But just to break it down, I went to a local game store here in the north part of Las Vegas. It's called Shall We Play? Great store. Love going there. They had a smaller tournament. There was only six of us, including me and my two boys. 3 rounds total, and I actually took first place out of the six. It was a lot of fun. I went 3-0 with a sapphire steel um, items deck, which I feel a little bit bad about going into this event with a what is probably the top tier deck in the format, but I also love the item strategy, and I'll talk about how I will talk about what the deck looked like later in the video. Break down what I used, some of the key plays that I had, highlight some of the cards that I think really did a fantastic job in there. But real quick, just how the tournament went. Like I said, 3 rounds. The first round I ended up being paired with my 12-year-old. He was playing an Emerald Steel discard deck, and to his credit, he did really well with a deck that he had literally thrown at him earlier today. Because he decided last minute he wanted to play, so we put together a deck, and he's always liked Emerald Steel, so I gave him one, and he went with it. Second round, I went up against a really cool Emerald Sapphire build that was centered around Big Hero 6. The guy I was playing loves Big Hero 6. I do too. I mean, obviously, I went out and got the Baymax promo when I went to CCQ Vegas because I just love this card. But he was all in on it. It was a fantastic deck to see, and I took him 2-1. So the first game he was on the play, and I wasn't drawing into my removal package. He developed a commanding board state that I just couldn't compete with. On the second two games, I drew into some of my removal. And in fact, in the second game, I drew only into my removal, but I ended up able to hold him. Was able to hold him at bay long enough for me to assemble the pieces of my engine to take the game, the second two games in that match. And then the third round, I went up against a Amethyst Emerald deck that had a lot of similarities to the deck my 12-year-old son was playing, and that one I felt there's a couple points where it felt a little dicey. Things were actually fairly close, but I was rocking the Lucky Dime with Tamatoa So Shiny, and the second game I actually had Tamatoa So Shiny on board, had 2 Lucky Dimes, and was able to quest with that Tamatoa for 5 lore because I had 4 items. And then I activated one of the Lucky Dimes for 5 more lore, and then activated the second Lucky Dime for 5 more lore on top of that. So 15 lore total to put me well over. It was exactly how the deck was designed to work, and I absolutely love being able to pull off that combo, even if I did, like I said, feel a little bit dirty pulling it off. But it was still a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Um, my 12-year-old rocking his Emerald Steel deck didn't have quite as much fun. He went 0-3, unfortunately. And my 10-year-old, he was playing the uh, Ruby Sapphire Shark deck that I've used in a couple of past set championships. His first match ended in a 1-1 draw, and then he lost the next two, um, 2-1. I think on both of them. So not as much success there, but they're learning, and that's the important part. Is they're always striving to be better. Um, we all got the promo, which was fantastic. So we ended up with these 3 copies of the Whole New World promo. And what's really cool is there wasn't a lot of pricing support. It was because it was a very small, low-key tournament. The store, Shall We Play, they put together a small package for the overall winner, which I went 3-0, so I ended up getting that. Some really cool stuff in there. The highlight, though, was a fourth copy of the promo. So we ended up with a play set, which I'm super excited about. I'm a completist, so I wanted to have that play set. So getting that fourth one without having to track it down in the aftermarket really made me happy. Um, Also got a Alice Tea Alchemist deck box, which I believe is from the Ursula's Return prizing kit. And inside of there was the Gaston pin from Fabled. This is the first Lorcana pin that I've ever gotten, so I'm really happy, really excited about that. It also had the lore counter for Belle Mechanic Extraordinaire, which I don't usually use lore counters. I use my phone and the lore tracking app or the lore tracker in the Ravensburger app. But I like having lore counters on me just in case, and because not everybody has a phone, and sometimes it's easier to do this than using a 20-sided die. So I had this in. I'll throw this into my box for sure to have on hand when I'm playing next. And then I got 3 promos in there as well. So one was Patch from, I believe this was Reign of Jafar, which I've actually had a copy of this one. It's one of the few promos that I do have. And then he had some spare other promos laying around, so we got one of the Horseman Strikes, which, if I remember correctly, was the pre-release promo. Like, you play in a pre-release event and get this one, so he must have had some spare ones laying around, which I love Sleepy Hollow, of course, so getting the Horseman Strikes promo was really exciting for me. And then the one that really got me happy was the Elsa Exploring the Unknown promo that was for a Bring a Friend. And I'm unfortunately I don't usually get a chance to play in the weekly events. Just, I mean, 5 kids and just busy schedules. Plus, Shall We Play, which is the closest store to us that runs events, they usually do theirs on Monday nights, where I'm exceptionally busy on those nights. So it makes it a little bit harder. So being able to come out and get some of these promos that I missed and have some fun playing Lorcana, connect with my boys, was a lot of fun. I really had a blast. Like I said, I hope you did too in your events. And I'm really excited to hear what kind of decks people were running. So before we go any further, why don't you go down into those comments and tell me what decks you're running, what cool plays you had, and then come back up, because we're going to go look at what the deck I was running and how it functioned for me. This is the deck list that I took to Infinity Weekend. And first blush, what I'll say is I felt a little bit bad about bringing what is probably the top tier deck into this event, but I also really enjoy this strategy. I like the mid-range combo strategy that's going on here, especially with Tamatoa So Shiny paired with Lucky Dime. And that's what this deck is trying to do. You're trying to assemble the pieces of that combo. You want Tamatoa So Shiny out to increase his lore value with more items, which is why we're running so many in here. 4 Popsicles, 4 Fortispheres, 2 Ink Runners, 2 Fishbone Quills, 2 Lucky Dimes, and items that are recurable with other cards we've got, because we want Tamatoa to have a lot of lore value, so we can quest with him and then get those Lucky Dimes out there to get more value off of him. We are trying to assemble this engine that requires a lot of card draw to cycle through down to what we need. So that's Popsicle, that's Fortisphere, that's Ink Runner, even a little bit. Ink Runner's not as good as Popsicle or Fortisphere because it costs twice as much. But all 3 of these items do the same thing. They draw you a card when they enter play. And then Hiram Flaversham is there, not banned in Infinity, able to banish one of these items to draw you 2 cards. That's when he enters play and when he quests. So it is able to cycle through a lot of your deck. Scrooge McDuck, he's in there because of a little extra filtering. So if I'm having trouble finding an item, I can play him down, look at the top 4, put one of those cards to hand if it's an item. And then Tamatoa's, both of them are going to help recur those. Tamatoa, Happy as a Clam, when you play this character, return up to 2 item cards from your discard to your hand. So you're able to recur those Popsicles, those Fortispheres that can banish themselves. And then when you quest, you can play an item for free, which, I'll be honest, questing with Tamatoa and then playing a Popsicle free is a kind of a feel bad. But questing with Tamatoa and playing a Lucky Dime for free feels fantastic, because you've just played a 7-drop card, a 7-cost card for nothing. Love that. And then Tamatoa is so shiny. When you play this character, whenever he quests, you may return an item card from your discard to your hand, and he gets a +1 lore value for each item you have in play. Like, I love that ability on him. That's what the deck is trying to do. Filter down to Tamatoa so shiny, a little bit of Tamatoa happy as a clam, and get items out there for the win. It works. We're doing that by ramping, of course, because we got some expensive cards that we want to get out there. So that's where we've got Tipo, Sail the Azurite Sea, Fishbone Quill, and Cinderella, of course, Dream Come True. All 4 of these cards doing very similar things. Tipo, Cinderella, Fishbone Quill is letting you put a card from your hand to your inkwell. Face down, doesn't need to be inkable, and your opponent doesn't have to see it. Sail the Azurite Sea, where it lets you ink an additional card from your hand. Has to be inkable, has to be shown, but it draws you a card. All 4 of these are great cards. What I will also say is that Cinderella is a pricier card. She's run about $30 a piece. If you've got them, fantastic. If not, How Far I'll Go is a really good alternate because it's still uninkable, 4 cost, and you're still getting a card to your inkwell and getting a card to your hand. What's nice about Cinderella, though, is that she pairs very well with Belle, a princess inventor, because Cinderella triggers off of a princess being played. Belle is a princess. And you can actually play her for free by banishing one of your items. You play Cinderella on one turn. The next turn, you play down Belle, and she triggers again. Because just remember, Cinderella only triggers once per turn. It doesn't matter how many princesses you play. It only cares about if you played a princess, not how many you played. So only triggers the one time. Obviously, though, this is a slower deck, so you want to be able to kind of control the board state a little bit. The one game that I lost this weekend was because I wasn't drawing into my removal. For that, we've got very robust package there. Let the Storm Rage on, 4 of those. Strength of Raging Fire, 4 of those. Along Came Zeus, 3 of those. Mostly because Along Came Zeus is uninkable. And we don't have as many characters that can sing that one. A little harder. And then, of course, Hades, Infernal Schemer, which can remove some big threats that the 3 songs can't strictly deal with. After you've put something into your opponent's inkwell, you still have a 3/6 body with 2 lore value. That's the basic strategy. It works very well. I really enjoy playing it. Like I said, just cycling down to that combo and going nuts with it. Cost-wise, it's not a budget deck, unfortunately. Cinderella and Tamatoa Happy as a Clam are expensive. As I said, Cinderella, I think, is replaceable if you don't have her. She's not strictly necessary. Tamatoa, on the other hand, I don't know of another card that can do anything close to what Tamatoa does. So if you're going to run this deck, you absolutely do need to have Tamatoa Happy as a Clam. Maybe not 4 of. I mean, you can probably get away with 3 if you've got that many. 2 would be a stretch, and 1, I don't think it would work with just 1. Beyond that, what's really nice is a lot of the cards aren't super expensive. Scrooge McDuck, Resourceful Miser, is a little bit pricier relative. I mean, it's about $6 a pop. Not strictly necessary, though. Like, if you don't have Scrooge McDuck, you could probably run Grammatala, Keeper of Ancient Stories. You don't get to look at as many cards, but there's no restriction on what you can put in your hand. So Grammatala looks at 2 cards. You get to put one of those in your hand regardless. Scrooge, he looks at the top 4, but you can only put an item to hand. And I will say that the one time I actually played Scrooge, I did not have an item in those top 4. So budget-wise, you can kind of get away with that. Hades Infernal Schemer, he is $7.50 or so, $8. Unfortunately, there's not really anything that replaces him either. What's nice is you've got the first chapter copies. You got the fabled reprints. He's not a hard card to find. It's just, he's very valuable. I mean, there's a lot of Sapphire in core constructed, so Hades' price is still kind of holding on. But you absolutely need that card in this deck. But beyond that, most of these other cards are not that expensive. There's nothing really that hard to come by. Like even Lucky Dime, which is a legendary from Into the Inklands, is super cheap. So this deck wouldn't be too hard to put together. You just got to bite the bullet a little bit on those Tamatoas and those Hades. So I enjoy this. I really hope that my local game stores are running more Infinity events, because I really, really like playing Infinity. I want to try my hand at Mally Shark Infinity, see what damage I can do there. I want to play this again. I hope this format really catches on, and I really hope people play more and more of it. And what's nice is the DLC in Indianapolis later this year is actually Infinity, so that'll help give more exposure to this format, and really, I hope, help grow it beyond what it is, because it doesn't have a lot of traction right now, and I would like to see that grow. In any case, I hope you had fun with Infinity Weekend. Played some good Lorcana, met with some great people, picked up some sweet promos. Just generally a great time had by all is my hope. But now with Infinity Weekend behind us, we can start focusing on set championships coming up in January. And if you want to learn more about not just set champs, but also what is coming out in the first half of 2026, then check out this video right here. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you in the next one.